Sarah?
Yeah, if they come in as participants because they click the other link, I'll just change that.
Yeah, perfect.
So I started the webinar now.
Okay, brilliant.
And people are joining.
Thank you. Oh yeah, here we are. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We'll just give everyone a few more moments to join before we start, hopefully pretty much on time. So thanks for joining us early. Hopefully you can hear and see us okay. But if you have any problems, let us know in the chat.
Hi, we haven't started yet, have we?
No, we're just going to start in just a few seconds, Orsi. Yeah.
Okay, so no one else from the election committee is here, right?
We'll keep an eye out, but not yet. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm ready to present it, but as I told Sarah, I think the membership has had enough of my face. So if Clement shows up, great.
Okay. We'll keep an eye on the attendees list, and as soon as anyone else turns up from the election committee, we'll move them over to be a panelist so that they can speak as well. Thanks, Orsi. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us, as I say. It is now 3 p.m. Vienna time, so we'll get started. This is also being recorded, just so you know, because obviously people from different time zones, you know, so that they can watch it in at their own convenience as well. So thanks again for joining. My name's Jamie Bridge. I'm the chair of the Vienna NGO Committee on behalf of the board, and we have a few of the board members here as well. We welcome you all to this General Assembly meeting. Obviously, we would much prefer to be in Vienna physically with all of you, and to, you know, we normally hire one of the big boardrooms and meet together for this AGM. But we do thank you for your understanding and your patience as we've had to move everything online due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We will do everything we can to make this work as efficiently as normal. But what I would say is please do use the chat function to submit any questions that you may have at any point. You can also use the Q&A box at the bottom here, because we've got this set up as a webinar. So, you know, we plan to take questions or answer questions throughout the session. So please feel free to chip in whenever you can. And if you do want to take the floor, please let us know as well, because we do want this to be as participatory as the AGM normally is. And as much as we can, you know, make it participatory despite it being online. And as you'll know, this is the first of two parts of the AGM. So as an exceptional arrangement this year, we've got the meeting today, and then the voting will take place on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and I'll let the election committee describe that process in more detail later. And then we will reconvene for the second part of the AGM to confirm the results and to close the meeting next Thursday. So yeah, this is part one of two. So the meeting is being recorded, just so you know, and I hope that is okay with everyone. We don't have any translation available today, as is normally the case for the AGM as well, but just in case you're looking for the translation option. So you should all have received the agenda for today's meeting, and Sarah can post the link into the chat as well for those of you who might not have that document open. But yeah, so just to say, first of all, I guess is the first question of the day is everyone happy with the agenda that has been submitted? I think the one variation from our side, thanks Sarah for posting the link there. The one variation from our side is that agenda item 8, which is the appointment of the auditors, we are going to leave that until part 2 next week. The main reason being that one of our wonderful auditors, John Redmond, is actually running for election. So depending on the results of the election, we may be looking for 1 auditor or 2 auditors. And it just makes sense to do that after the election. So we'll do that agenda item on next Thursday. And I hope everyone understands and that that's okay with everyone. So just a very quick moment to pause in case anyone has any interventions or any concerns or questions at this point. I see none. I don't have a gavel. Normally I've got that little hammer thing with me, but I'll just have to bang my desk instead. So yeah, we have the agenda all sorted. The next agenda item is the roll call. We won't go through the whole list today because as we normally don't, but I can inform you that 127 VNGOC members in good standing have registered their representative to vote in this year's election. So 127 is our roll call, and that list of names will be included in the draft minutes, which means that quorum today for any decisions to be valid is 20 members, and we can already see that we've got more than 80 joining us today. So that's great, which means we're quorum on this call, which is fantastic. And yeah, everyone who has, and thank you to everyone who's nominated their voter in advance. And again, I'll let the election committee explain a bit more.
Amy, sorry to interrupt. I think your video is wonky. We can't see you anymore.
Oh, really? You can't see me on the screen?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll take myself off so you can just see the slides anyway. Yeah. Can you see me now?
No, we can't. We can just see a black box.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure what's going on there. Can you see me now? Hello?
Yes,
Yeah,
now
okay.
we can see you.
Let me share in a more traditional way then to see if that helps. So I'm just going to go back to that presentation. Is that working? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. So we've done roll call. Approval of the last minutes. Again, they were shared in advance. I think Sarah can put the link into the chat for those who might not have had a chance to look at them. But I want to pause now just to give time for any questions or any points anyone would like to raise. I see, Shane, you have your hand raised. So are we able to move Shane over to be a participant to speak?
Yes, just give me a second to find him.
Although Shane, it looks like your hand has gone down, but did you want to make an intervention, Shane? No? Okay. And oh, sorry, I see the chat now. Sorry, Shane. No problem at all.
Yes.
No problem at all.
Yeah, my apologies. Thank you.
Don't worry at all, Shane. No worries. I mean, yeah, a message from Regina. So in terms of someone who's not been able to pay their membership fees, have they notified us, Regina, of that? Because I think Sarah's been working very hard to try and troubleshoot, because there are obviously, it's sometimes difficult for people to make payments. Quite often, quite often people are paying in cash in Vienna because it's the easiest thing to do, and obviously that's been taken away from us as an option. So Regina, if you are able to get them to contact Sarah, please, and then we can try and troubleshoot, because there's various ways around the challenges. So thanks for raising that. Any comments on the minutes, or can we consider those to be adopted from the last meeting? Okay, I see nothing, so we'll count those as adopted. Thank you. And Sarah, do we have any apologies for absence?
No, we don't. We haven't received any.
Okay, no problem at all. I guess, again, because it's an online meeting, that's not quite as necessary as before. So that's 4 agenda items out the way relatively quickly. As I say, please do chip in and let us know if there's any, if there are any problems. And I see another question about the payment restrictions. Again, if there is anyone experiencing problems with that, I think this has come from Amy. If there's anyone experiencing those issues, please let us know. Let Sarah know as soon as you can, and we'll troubleshoot them as best we can. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so moving on then, I'll hand over to, do we have Ergin with us? No, I can't see, or is he maybe an attendee rather than a participant? No, it doesn't appear that we have Ergin with us. He was going to present this section. But just to say on the membership point, yeah, so we now have 318 members. So the membership has continued to grow, which is fantastic. What we will do in 2021 is do a review of the membership. We're kind of overdue a review because it is useful and it's good for the credibility of the network, but every now and again we do a review to make sure that every organization in that list is still in existence and still engaged in our work. So that's part of the work.
Sorry, Jamie, to interrupt. I just Ergin texted. He joined under another name and as a participant. So I'll make him.
Oh, okay, brilliant. So yeah, if you do that, then I can hand over. Yeah, then we can hand over to him. That's brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Oh, okay. Yes, I've just seen your messages, Ergin. Thank you. Okay. Have we got him as a panelist yet, Sarah?
He should be.
Ergin, I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Jamie. This year it's a bit hectic, there are many links and other things, and I think I registered myself from my colleague's account for this reason. Happens. Hi everyone, this is Ergin, I'm the Secretary General, and this year it was a fruitful year for the VNGOC members, and our total number as of March 2021, the VNGOC has 318 members. And if you wish, you can see the current list from the VNGOC webpage. So, Sarah, can we move to the next slide? Or Jamie?
Yeah, I'm controlling the slides, Ergin, so you just let me know when you want to go. Yeah.
Thank you. As you see, this year we have 64 new members. Since March 2020, the board welcomed 64 new member organizations from 39 different countries. And it's glad for us that you can see in the bars in the left-hand side, there was too much demand from Asia and Africa, which we see that VNGOC is now a global organization, and we have many new members from globe. So thank you. I would like to congratulate all new members, and I would like to encourage all other organizations who would like to apply for a membership to VNGOC. Thank you very much.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Ergin. Sarah, are you able to put the link, because there's a link on the slide, but obviously people won't be able to access that. Are you able to put that link in the chat so people can see the list? So thank you, everyone, again, and thank you, Ergin. Sorry, that's great. And as I said, really reassuring that the membership continues to increase, and particularly from different parts of the world as well, which is fantastic. At this point, again, I'll open it up. Any questions or any comments that people may have? I see there's a hand raised. Let me just check. So we have a hand raised from Musa. So I don't know if we can give him the floor, Sarah.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Hi.
I just have a small question about the agenda. I don't know if I can discuss something about the agenda or leave it later on.
Oh, no, let's do it now. I mean, I think, yeah, please.
Yeah, very good. regarding to the point number 9 in the agenda, we have the proposal for the new election system. I think there is a proposal, but actually we don't have much time to discuss this proposal. So I suggest that there is a short notice for this change or a proposal. So I suggest to postpone the voting for this point in the next year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the proposal was submitted and it was submitted in time in line with the statutes by a number of members and was shared. And actually the proposal itself, I don't know, Sarah, if you can email, if you can include the link to the proposal for those who might see it. We'll come on to it later, obviously. But as I think Stig Erik is going to present, the proposal itself is not actually for a decision to be made. It's actually a proposal to have a conversation, and then a decision will actually be made much later in the year. So with that in mind, because it's not, because we're not asking for a vote right now on an actual decision, it's more just a proposal to have a conversation over the coming months. I think it would be good for us to discuss it and to have it presented at the AGM, and also because it was submitted in line with the statutes, we also, you know, as the board, we are also obliged to allow, you know, to put that on the agenda as well. So I'd appreciate if we could keep it there, Musa, and then allow Stig Erik to present what it is that they're proposing, and then we can see if there's, at that stage, if there's any questions, concerns or objections under agenda item 9. Memory, I see you have your hand raised as well. I don't know if we can move Memory over to also speak. And thanks, Sarah, for putting the links in the chat.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Memory, please. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you so much for allowing us to speak. I believe I would want to second what Dr. Musa has just said, because we realized that the time was too short for us to come up with a well-informed decision on the agenda, so on Article 9. So I think it would be best if it can be we be given enough time or ample time for us to make a good decision. I understand what you have given, the explanations. We truly appreciate what we have said, but we still feel we need more time for us to make a good decision. Thank you.
Okay. So as I say, we have to keep it on the agenda because that's kind of written into the statutes. But in that agenda item, we'll make sure there is, you know, but we acknowledge both of your interventions, but also there'll be time for more interventions on this as well. So what I'd suggest is that we kind of, you know, put that kind of on hold until we get to that agenda item, and we can discuss it further then. But thank you very much, both Musa and Memory, for your interventions at this point. But yeah, I mean, you know, to come to Dr. Musa, for your point, it's not really within my gift to take it off the agenda, because as I say, it's been submitted by members in good standing. And so, yeah, as with any proposal of its kind, we have to give it, we have to at least allow the opportunity for it to be presented. Okay, so with that said, and I'm trying to keep an eye on different, you know, different boxes and things like that, you know, to try and keep an eye on chats. But Dave Borden, you had your hand raised as well. So if we can move Dave over. Thanks, Sarah, for all of this. Dave, the floor is yours.
Hi, David Borden with StopTheDrugWar.org, official ECOSOC name, Dear CNET Foundation, longtime member at this point of VNGOC. I have heard, I haven't seen the membership list yet, couldn't find that link, but have heard that a very large number, perhaps 40% or more of the new member groups are all chapters of a single organization, which is itself a VNGOC member. And I'm a little concerned about this, although I instinctively want people to be included, especially if they're from parts of the world that where we wish to foster representation. At another meeting just a few years ago, this issue came up of chapters, and the idea of chapters in general getting to join as independent or voting organizations was not viewed favorably, and it got rejected through discussion, albeit not through a vote. Now there are organizations that technically are chapters but have their own life and are their own, have their own NGO status, ECOSOC status, etc. And that's another thing. But 25 chapters of one organization suddenly joining, or whether suddenly or not, this is the first we're hearing about it, just does not feel right. It might be unfair, and in order for we as the members to feel that we know whether it's fair or not, we really need more time to learn more about this. So without intending any disrespect toward these chapters and their members who might sincerely wish to engage in the work of VNGOC and international drug policy, and with some hesitance because of not wanting to send a negative message to such groups, I nevertheless feel that the question of whether chapters, whether or in what circumstances chapters can become voting members of the VNGOC be deferred for a different annual meeting or discussed in between.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. So just a couple of things. Sarah, first of all, to Sarah, you have shared the link to the list of new members, but you've only shared it to all panelists. So would you be able to resend it, please, to all panelists and attendees, and then everyone will see that link? So apologies, I've just realized why you couldn't see that, Dave. So apologies for that.
And I also want to point out this could set off a, so to speak, arms race. There are organizations among the VNGOC membership that have literally hundreds of chapters. So do we want to have thousands of chapters?
So I think the conversation that you're alluding to from a few years ago, I think we're talking about kind of 2017 now, there was concern, you're absolutely right, about several chapters of one organization being listed. As a result, well, not as a result, but one of the reactions to that was that the VNGOC board renewed and reviewed the statutes and the rules of procedure. And the rules for members now, which the board has been following, is that you cannot join if you are not independent, financially and administratively independent from another member. So as things stand, Dave, in terms of the actual membership criteria, chapters cannot join. If you are a national chapter of another organization, and you're not an independent organization, you're not eligible for membership. And so that is the criteria, and we have been adhering to that criteria. There, so what I would encourage is that if there are examples where you believe that something has fallen through the cracks and where there's an organization that isn't an independent NGO in their own right, then obviously please let us know, because the one difficulty we have as a board is we want to be inclusive. We don't want to be putting up too many thresholds. So we've never really, we've never gone down the road of asking people to prove their status or, to kind of, provide extensive legal documents or annual audits or budget, things like that. So there's a lot of good faith involved in the process. And I think that's right. I think that's the appropriate approach to take. I would encourage you all to look at the list. Sarah has now shared it with all of you, so it's in the links and in the chat. And yeah, if there are instances where you believe the criteria have not been fulfilled, and maybe someone has, maybe the board has made a mistake in that regard, then please do let us know. But from, we have gone through each of these membership applications, and we do send some back with queries if things aren't clear. And, you know, as far as we have been informed, every member out of those 64 new members is an independent NGO. And I think that's, you know, so in terms of the chapters discussion, Dave, I think that has been resolved in terms of the revision that was made to the statutes. I see, Roisin, you have your hand raised as well. So I don't know, Sarah, can we move Roisin over?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to kind of follow up on what Dave was saying a little bit. I understand that we do this kind of in good faith and everything, and like SSDP as an organization consists of over 100 chapters in itself, and we're not kind of in a position where we want to make all of those chapters members of the VNGOC, because I don't see that as fair or practical. But I think it is a little surprising having so many kind of chapters coming, or organizations coming into the VNGOC under the same name. And I know we go in good faith, but it might be, just because it's such a large number, worth addressing in some way. It's just a concern that weighs on my mind in some ways.
So which ones are we referring to here when we look down this list?
There's I think over 20 from Green Crescent, correct?
Okay, but from a national, okay. So
Yeah.
Ergin, can I ask you to respond to that one then, if that's okay, just in terms of the status of those 20?
Thank you very much. Actually, it's very easy. There are many organizations around the world with the name of Green Crescent, and also without the name of Green Crescent, and they are working close with many addiction types. But all of the Green Crescents in each country, including the one in Turkey that I'm working for, are fully independent. Their executive boards are fully different than each other, and there is no any chance for any Green Crescent to influence the other Green Crescent. And if I'm not wrong, around 10 of them, of these 20, has already ECOSOC. So as the board of the NGOC, we checked all the Green Crescents and the others, if they are independent, if they have different budget, and if they are accepted as an independent organization in their country. So they are not chapters, and they are not reporting to each other. So their names are quite same. But as I said, there are many other organizations inside this network that they don't have Green Crescent name. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ergin. So that's about so that's the position in terms of those 20 organizations that may share a name, but they are not in, you know, legally or in the way they operate. It's not a chapters situation. So it's not like there are 20 chapters, because as I said, if they were only chapters, if they were just, you know, subdivisions and they weren't independent, then they wouldn't be eligible for the NGOC membership. And that's, you know, that's the criteria. And as I say, as the VNGOC board, you know, we have to take these things on good faith, because you know, it's the same when we ask someone for their income level. You know, we've got no interest and no capacity to start doing audits of every member to see what their income level is. You know, there has to be an element of good faith in this process. So Dave and Roisin, you've spoken. I see your hands are still raised, but Jan, are we able to move Jan over, Sarah, so that he can also speak, because he has his hand raised? Thank you.
Yes, hey, hello, this is Jan Stola of Youth Organization for Drug Action. I see the discussion around the definition of the chapters, and Roisin, I think she pointed to the fact about the Students for Sensible Drug Policy structure, but also you may have, it's an example from Poland that I am from, that you can have an organization where each chapter is, you know, on the paper is separately registered. The biggest Polish drug treatment NGO is called Monar. They have around 50 chapters around the country, and each of them is independently registered. They all have their bank accounts, board, and so on and so on. Yet there is also one central, so to say, board, which is nominating the boards of all the chapters down in the regions. So at the end of the day, the situation is a bit different, because under the definition that we are talking about here, these all organizations are independently registered, but they are not independent in a way that they will, for example, vote independently. If the board of the local association, local chapter, quote unquote, the word chapter, but local association, which again is registered on its own. But if the board is nominated by the by the supreme board of the entire network, then obviously they most probably we can expect they will vote always in line with the main board, because otherwise you can just switch the board members. I'm not sure about the structure. You mentioned the example of the International Crescent, so I'm not sure about your structure. Can you perhaps please elaborate a bit more? I'm not very familiar with your organization, but I can see there is this global international federation of Green Crescent. So how does it work? So for example, could I, if you say they are independent and not related to each other, could I start Green Crescent Poland, for example, and without your permission, so to say? Not that I'm planning to do it, but I'm just trying to figure out what's the kind of the relationship between this local organizations and the federation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. And we also have a question from, apologies if I don't get the names right, but Endrit Recker. I hope I've pronounced that even close to being correct. But is it possible to move them over as well, Sarah, to make an intervention, please?
Yes, just give me a second.
No problem, thank you. And then Ergin, is it okay if I then come back to you to respond to Jan's question, if that's okay? But maybe if we just let's
thank you.
Do you hear me?
Is that Endrit? Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yes, this is Endrit.
Hi.
Hi, hello everyone. Since we are discussing the issue of the new members, I find it appropriate to explain that since I am the representative of Green Crescent Albania, okay. I will give some information, giving the example of Green Crescent Albania, which was established in 2016. Independently, I have established my own board here in Albania, Albanian citizens. Hello, do you hear me?
Yeah. Please carry on. Yeah.
Albanian citizens, and we prepared the status, the Establishment Act, and we submitted the request to the court, and there is a decision of the court in establishing the Green Crescent Albania. There is nothing to do. We are fully independent from any other thing. So I'm talking about Albanian Greek Crescent. So I heard the previous speakers raising their concerns, and I can assure them that there is nothing dependent. We are here in Albania fully independent, legally, financially, in whatsoever form. Okay.
Hendrik, thank you very much for taking the floor and for clarifying that. That is incredibly useful. And just one thing to say as well, when we had this initial discussion is, we did make the distinction early on, and for good reason, between you can still be an independent organization, but you can be part of a network. Being part of a network is not a problem. I mean, I work for an international network. Most of our members are part of one network or another. So that in itself was never considered to be an issue. So, Andrew, I do appreciate you making an intervention. And Ergin, over to you. I see your hand.
Thank you.
Is it possible to take the mask off, or are there other people in the room?
There are 3 of my colleagues here.
Don't worry at all. Thank you.
All right. But just to show my face for a second for the members. Hi. I have to close now. So thank you, Jamie. David, I will be very happy to have a friendly organization with the name of Green Crescent or Green Cross or with another name in Poland, and I will be very happy to work with you. And if you ask me that I can open a Green Crescent in Poland or not, as a friend, I can say that how you wish you could do, because there is no any board anywhere around the world that there is a point that you can ask. But if you open a Green Crescent and or Green Cross or any other name, and if you can email me to the Turkish Green Crescent that I would like to work with you with your models, with your recovery models, etc., we will be happy to see what we can do. Yes, there is an international federation of Green Crescent, which is not a member of VNGOC or which is not a member of any other organization around the world. But this federation does not only have Green Crescent members. It, for example, the member in Austria is Neo Begin. In other countries are different. So for the organizations around the world, if they want to be a member of International Federation of Green Crescent, which is not me, not Andrew or the others, they can apply directly to the federation. And the federation is just like a football federation that rules, etc., and the ethics. So yeah, our names are very similar in different languages, but it is not meaning that inside VNGOC there are more than other organizations which is name are not Green Crescent, but they are with the same minded people like Green Crescent, and we are mainly working on prevention and recovery, and we also accept the importance of harm reduction. So thematic issues, yes, we will learn much more, but this is not mean that we try to influence each other. Sorry for a long explanation. Thank you.
Ergin, thank you. And I think it's important that we open up this space for people to be able to, to ask these questions. And I do really appreciate Ergin and Endrit, your willingness to explain that, to explain and provide the answers. So thank you. Ailish, I see you have your hand raised as well.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Ailish here from Youthrise. Thank you to both of the Green Crescent representatives for the thorough explanation there as well. Can I just ask, has there been some sort of precedent set on this in the past? Like if you look through the VNGOC membership from before this year, is there other organizations where a similar thing has occurred or anything like that?
I mean, yes, we do have some organizations that share similar names. We have, and I think even, if you're asking about beyond this last year, we've had more than one National Green Crescent as a member for quite a few years now, which, so it's not like all of these Green Crescent organizations only joined in the last 12 months. So there is precedent in that regard. And I think, the statutes themselves were the new statutes, in 2017, they were a response to a concern that was raised about chapters that were being registered, and those chapters withdrew, I believe, as a result of that process. So that was resolved. And I think, I think we are clear that if you are just a chapter, that is not permissible. But if you are an independent organization, then, you are allowed to apply for VNGOC membership. So there is precedent. This is, I don't want to just kind of pick on the Green Crescent organizations in that regard, but this isn't a kind of, something we haven't come across before, for sure, Ailish. Yeah. Okay. Thanks everyone, and as I say, thank you as well to colleagues from Green Crescent Albania and Turkey, and thanks Ergin for responding to those questions. I do appreciate it. Okay, so let's. What I'd suggest is that we move on. I can't see any new comments coming in. Well, no substantive comments coming in. So let's move on, and I'd like to give the floor, if I may, to Matej, if you're still there, who's going to just take us through the annual report. And again, Sarah, if it's possible for you to share the link to the annual report, that'd be much appreciated as well. Matej, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Most of the stuff from the annual report was already reported in informal meeting, but of course there are several new things since then also included in the report. As you can imagine, the last year was a year full of challenges and hardship and tragedy for many of us. But if I can express my own personal opinion, we did a great job as Vienna NGO Committee despite the pandemic crisis and most of activities transferred to online platforms. So there were not many in-person events and speakers in person in different events. We held also our first webinars during the summertime, and we were able to select 46 civil society organization speakers for 7 different meetings. So next slide, Jim. And for example, we selected speakers and also presented some important Vienna NGO Committee statements during some important events. For example, last year when we met the last time in person in Vienna in March at 63rd CND. And also we presented a statement and selected 4 different speakers for the high-level event, which is called Beijing +25 in June. And also during the presentation of World Drug Report in June, we also presented this statement and selected 3 different speakers from Vienna NGO Committee. Next slide. It was quite busy summer, so we organized several webinars presented with presentation of a World Drug Report in 4 different languages. And also we updated membership about the new look of NGO marketplace. So we reviewed this and presented the new tools and the new look. And also in September, we organized a webinar particularly on NGO marketplace and also CND engagement. And a lot of you were presented at this webinar as well. Next slide. Also, we selected several speakers for CND intersessional and thematic intersessional, and also we organized informal members meeting online, of course, and nearly 150 representatives from Vienna NGO Committee member organizations were present at this informal meeting. So I can see that more than at this AGM. And also we selected speakers and also presented statement at CND reconvened. Next slide. I already mentioned this NGO marketplace, which was presented at specific webinar. So we presented a new design and new tools. Thanks to funding from it is actually a joint project by UNODC and Vienna NGO Committee. It was developed with funding from Russia. And the marketplace is actually an interactive online platform for drug policy NGOs, allowing us to share our work, events, news, and to network with other NGOs. So I hope we will use this platform, especially with the new design and new features, more in the future. I can say that our organization is not using it often, and we will try to improve this in the next couple of months and years. In my personal opinion is that this is a great tool also for networking, to connect with each other, especially in these hectic times of COVID-19 pandemic, which actually limit us to meet in person. So this platform could be a good place for us to exchange and to network. Next. As you can see, and most of you know, that we actually, not we, but 2 different regional working groups started to work. You know probably more about Africa Working Group, which already developed a statement to join the common position, and they have already 25 members. But we also have a rather new Asia Pacific Working Group with around 7 members, and they they also did a lot of consultations on Asia Pacific common position on drugs. And this is an ongoing process. So in some regions, our members are quite active, and they decided to establish the working groups and work more actively in regarding the activities in the regions. So next slide. And as you can see, we are also very active on social media. So altogether, we have more than 12,000 followers in different social media, especially Facebook and Twitter, and also YouTube, and also newsletter subscribers. We had almost 10,000 engagements, which includes also likes, comments, and shares of our posts, and also newsletters clicks, and more than 150,000 impressions, which means that how often people saw our news from Vienna NGO Committee. So next slide, please. Regarding the speaker selection, as usually, also during some other years, we were very active as a board to select, to give opportunities as many speakers as possible with geographical balance, gender balance, and also regarding the areas of our work. So I must say that this was quite difficult and challenging work. So we always followed our selection criteria, and these criteria were developed by Civil Society Task Force for the ministerial segment in 2019, and aim to ensure the broadest possible representation of civil society speakers at different events. So we all the time follow those criteria. And in some cases, at least I can speak for myself and also for some other board members, before we first check abstracts and then see from which region and from which organization applications are coming. So this, we try to assure as much as, I don't know how to say it, transparent selection process and focus mostly on quality in abstract. So I have to emphasize this for all future applications. So we take into consideration mostly the quality of abstract, and then we go to some other criteria which are presented here in this slide. So next slide, please. So as you can see, regarding the applications, we got more than 170 applications. Among those, 88 women applied for speaking at different events and opportunities, which you can see on the list on the left part of the slide. And we got applications from more than 50 countries, and you can see also distribution by regions on the bottom of the slide. So next. And regarding the selected speakers, we selected 46 speakers. 2/3 of them were females, and we only have 8 speakers in person. Obviously, it's logical why, because of the pandemic and travel limitations in this period. But we got speakers, we selected speakers from 30 different countries, and I think distribution between regions was quite good. So we always try to distribute speakers as equally as possible, also regarding the quality of abstract and gender distribution. But you can see the distribution by region was quite good as well. Next slide.
I think that's it, isn't it, Matic? Because then we move on to the accounts, if I'm not mistaken, which Penny is going to present for us. So thank you so much, Matic. I really appreciate you taking the time to go through that. Hopefully it was clear for everyone. And obviously, as always, we welcome questions or anything you might want to pick up on. But just while I give a bit of time for any questions to come in, I just want to acknowledge Sarah's work in putting things like this together so beautifully, so visually, really helping us with the communications part of what we do, as well as just running the network, running the VNGOC really well for us. So yeah, just to thank her for doing this. I hope you'll agree that it's a big improvement, over time in how we've been able to present this kind of information. So yeah, any questions? I can't see any hands raised. So yeah, okay, we'll move on then. Penny, can I give the floor to you? And we're now we're on agenda item 7, and we're presenting the VNGOC accounts from 2020 and also our proposed budget for 2021.
Thanks, Jamie. You can hear me all right?
Yeah, can hear you
okay,
perfectly.
Here we go. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, so as you can imagine, the state of our finances really mirrors what Matej was speaking about in the annual report, in that we all know we had a very different year to what we were expecting at the beginning of 2020. We did actually have slightly less income than what we expected from what we budgeted for from the membership fees. Our overall expenditure was lower than expected for obvious reasons, in that a lot of our expenditure didn't occur in terms of travel grants for members and board meetings, face-to-face board meetings. We'd also like to acknowledge that Sarah's salary in 2020 was actually covered by a grant from the UNODC Civil Society Unit. So thank you very much to the CSU for that grant. And in terms of unexpected expenditure, we did, of course, also have some minor costs that weren't budgeted for at the beginning of the year, which were the webinars due to COVID, which were a great success, as Matej already alluded to. So overall, we have ended the year in surplus at about 6,000 euro for $450 US, and we closed with a balance at the end of January 2021 of about 33,000 euro, 15,000 US. And we would also just like to note that the auditors did approve these accounts in writing. Were there any questions before we just move to the budget?
Yeah, any questions? I mean, just to say, I've just noticed, yeah, in that middle column, those bottom 3 figures, the totals, they are euros, not dollars there. So, but yeah, any questions or anything people want to raise from the 2020 accounts? We have a hand raised, so sorry, let me just find out who. So Endrit, did you want to, is that still a hand raised from before, or is that a new intervention? Would you like to speak?
This is a new intervention.
Okay, over to you.
I am so happy that you could provide and guarantee the salary of Sarah, who is doing a great job, by a donation. Is there, sorry, excuse my ignorance if I'm wrong, but is there any other way to have it officially guaranteed, or do we have, can we prepare a kind of a request, official request of all members to write to any of the entities or body within the UNODC to provide it more regularly, rather than having it depending on donations? That's my question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, the way that it's been working with Sarah, as Penny mentioned, it's been very beneficial for us, because UNODC have been covering her time through not so much through donations, it's actually through consultancy contracts. And we always have included a provision for paying some of that salary contribution ourselves. But that's mainly just in case, because there's, with UNODC, with all the UN agencies, there are lots of different rules and regulations about the hiring of consultants. And quite often there needs to be a period of time that passes between the end of one contract and the beginning of another. So we've always included provisional budget for Sarah's salary in order to cover any gaps that might exist. But actually, as you see from the accounts from 2020, but also from the couple of years previous, we've never had to actually use our own funding for that, which again, as Penny said, we're hugely grateful to UNODC. I don't know, Mirella, I see that you're with us. I don't know, Mirella or Billy, are you able to maybe say a bit more about the question there, about around whether or not it can be kind of a more permanent, a more secured arrangement?
Yes, thank you, Jamie, and good afternoon, everybody. I think, I mean, it has been quite continued over the last at least 2 years. We have to use from time to time some imagination because of this contractual reason that you have mentioned. But on the other hand, because Sarah needs to remain, she partly now also work in some cases completely for UNODC, but she has to remain independent and devoted for part of her time to the VNGOC. So somehow this arrangement works well for both of us. Then of course one day she would want to do something else, so that's another thing. We will think about it at that time, but I think just to reassure,
hopefully that is not soon,
to reassure everybody that it is definitely in the intention of UNODC to continue this support, and we make sure when we do any fundraising to ensure that there is this funding for this purpose. And when we have administrative issues, the VNGOC has always jumped in to sort out, who's going to pay and this kind of detail. As far as for you, it's fine, and we are happy to continue this support, which is I think indispensable for the VNGOC and for also UNODC. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mirella. Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely agree with you. Indispensable is the word. I can't think what we would do without Sarah. I really can't. So, yeah, no, thank you very much, Mirella. Indrit, is that okay from your side? Does that answer the question? Oh, you're still on me. Okay. I can't see any other questions. So, Penny, shall I flick over to the next slide and then? Yeah, and then we move to the budget for this year, which is something that we would be looking for approval from the membership for. Is that okay, Penny?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so then for the budget, travel grants will be carried over from reserves in terms of income, and then we have the expected expenditure just listed on the right-hand side there. In terms of salary costs for Sarah, travel grants or hopefully travel grants for NGO speakers to travel this year, funding through the regional working groups, and again for events and webinars and the standard expenditures we see each year for the VNGOC. And then just to speak briefly into how this is represented in our work plan. Obviously, we are working towards the objectives of the strategic plan of the VNGOC from 2019 to 2021. And we will strive to meet all of these objectives that are listed on the screen. We will continue to develop the capacity we've progressed on this year to engage with UN bodies in Vienna, and also now in all of these online environments that we find ourselves in, through continuing to facilitate civil society inputs and engagement at the CND and other relevant UN meetings and fora, and through the promotion of the NGO marketplace that Matej spoke to earlier, and through better regional participation through ad hoc working groups as well.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Penny. So we'll be looking for, well, basically, now's an opportunity to raise any questions or any objections you may have to the budget for 2021. And if not, I think we'll take the liberty of assuming that this is approved by the membership at large. So I just want to give a few moments now in case anyone wants to raise a hand or post something in the chat or the Q&A. We're more than happy to answer any questions that you may have about this budget. It's obviously, it's a difficult year to budget for because we don't, you know, we don't know for sure what's going to happen in terms of travel. Whether, you know, some travel, we're hoping some travel will be possible before the end of the year. But yeah, please, opportunity for any questions now. And maybe while we're waiting, or while we just give some time in case people are typing questions or anything like that, we have, Sarah, do we have the auditors with us? I see we've got John, haven't we, with us? Who was the second auditor?
Musa Daoud, he's also with us.
Is with us as well. So could I don't know, John or Musa, if there was anything you wanted to add or anything you also wanted to say, particularly looking at the 2020 accounts, happy to give you the floor.
Oh, yes, Jimmy, I would like to confirm the audit process because thank you, Sarah, for sending the budget earlier. I would like to approve the budget of 2020. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Musa. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so I can't see any other comments. So unless we see any objections now, we're going to consider this to be approved for 2021. So thanks again for your support and understanding on this. Okay, so as I said at the start, in terms of agenda item 8, we're going to move that until after the elections. The reason being that one of the auditors is actually running for election. So depending on the results of the elections in the next few days, we may be looking to appoint 1 or 2 new auditors. So it makes more sense to leave item 8 until next week's finale on Thursday. So I hope, again, that that's okay with everyone. So that then takes us on to agenda item 9. And I know we had a little bit of discussion on this earlier, but I'd like to give the floor at this point to Stig Erik, who I believe is with us. So Stig Erik, please, over to you. It'd be great if you could present the proposal and you know, the rationale for the proposal. And at the same time, Sarah, if you're able to share the link again in the chat, that would be really, really appreciated. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. I'm here and I'm ready. Yes, this proposal was sent in from a group of members. The background for this proposal is our understanding of the Vienna NGO Committee as an umbrella organization that represents a broad variety of NGOs with different perspectives, working in different fields and in different regions of the world. And we see Vienna NGO Committee as a platform for NGOs to speak in the UN meetings, not to promote specific drug policy views. So it's a collaborative effort from civil society. The board of the Vienna NGO Committee is sort of the link between the UN bodies and the membership, and we therefore feel that it's important that members feel that their interests and perspectives are represented on the board. And we've been a little bit concerned because of a tendency we've seen of members voting as blocks in over the past couple of elections. That the current winner-takes-all election system risks creating an unrepresentative board. In a sense, in the worst-case scenario, one group would win all the seats and leaves a minority without representation on the board. We also feel that the current voting system is a bit difficult in terms of securing regional and gender balance or representation on the board. So we have been discussing a proposal to give the nominations committee an additional mandate, and that would be they would be responsible for presenting a slate of candidates instead of just listing individual candidates for the election. They would make a recommendation of the following 3 candidates are the recommendation of the nomination committee, and the nomination committee would then have to consider gender balance, regional representation and different drug policy perspectives and fields of work. The advice or the recommendation of the nomination committee is a recommendation. The General Assembly is always the governing body, and the governing body can, of course, decide to follow the recommendations or reject the recommendation and vote for any candidates they want. So it's not like it doesn't give the nomination committee the power to select the board. That power still lies with the General Assembly. We are not proposing a decision on this now at this stage. The proposal that's on the table right now is to appoint a working group from within the Vienna NGO membership to work on this proposal and suggest amendments to the rules of procedure, and also write down the terms of reference for this nomination committee. So what criteria should the nomination committee emphasize? How should they go about their work? What mandate should they have? And we've outlined a timeline where a working group makes a recommendation or a proposal for decision at the later general meeting or extraordinary general meeting. So that's in short the proposal that's on the table right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stig-Erik. I really appreciate that. And hopefully everyone has also been able to look at this proposal in advance, or to see the link which Sarah has now posted on the side. So, you know, in terms of process, you know, any group of members can make a proposal of this kind for an AGM at any time. So that's, you know, that's why this is on the table. And I really appreciate the work that Stig-Erik and others have done, you know, thinking about this proposal and submitting it. The option to convene an extraordinary general meeting, again, according to the statutes, that can be triggered by a group of members. It does not need a General Assembly decision on that. Any group of members can trigger an EGM at any point. They just need to be in good standing and be over a certain number. But really the main decision now, as Stig-Erik has said, like, this is a discussion rather than an actual change being decided on today. And I know we heard earlier from Musa and Memory about concerns about there not being enough time to make a decision, but this proposal is not making a decision. The one thing we would decide here and now as a General Assembly is to delay the appointment of the nominations committee until October 2021. Now, the nominations committee doesn't really start its work until after October anyway. And the main reason for proposing that delay is that if this proposal was to ultimately be, if the change was ultimately to be accepted by the members, then, you know, obviously the terms of reference for the nominations committee would change, and therefore it wouldn't make much sense to appoint the nominations committee before that happens. But similarly, if the change that is proposed, if that is not accepted by the members in October, which is absolutely fine, then nothing is lost by then appointing the nominations committee anyway in October using the existing terms of reference. So that's really the only thing that's being kind of proposed for change right now. Everything else is just the establishment of the working group, as you said, Stig-Erik. So with that said, I can see that we have hands raised. So I'd like, if we can, Sarah, to give the floor to Mohammed first, if that's possible. I don't know if, yeah, please. Mohammed, are you there? I can see you're taken off mute, so hopefully you can hear us. Okay, and there's also a hand raised from Tajuddin as well. So I don't know, Tajuddin, can I give the floor to you perhaps?
Good day, Tajuddin Abela, representing Green Crescent Air Development Initiative from Nigeria. I'm just curious about some aspect of the proposal. One of them is the question of gender balance. I'm curious because we are organizations, and it is member of organization that contest for this post, isn't it? And not organizations. Because I'm thinking that if it's organization that contest for this post, then the issue of gender balance should not be an issue, because it's just organization that will contest. Then any member can be nominated from the organization to represent the organization for being a member of the board. But if there are individuals that belong to the organization, I was just thinking, how do we resolve this conflict that is there? The other issue I'm looking at, I don't understand, maybe because just talking about geographical representation is a vague term. It would be nice or it would be more informative or instructive for one to be able to understand the technical meaning or definition for what geographical representation connotes. And also balanced representation. We need to have what are the technical meaning, or how do we define this, and how can we put this in a context. And lastly, just looking for a year period to run through the whole list to work on this, to me, I think might be too short if we are going to do something on this global perspective. So that in order not to rush to do something and make the same error or the same mistake we're trying to correct. Those are my comments for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tejani. That's appreciated. Mohammed, did you still want to make an intervention? You please feel free to unmute and speak. And then I see as well, John, you have your hand raised. So, Mohammed, can we try again and see if we can hear you now? No. Okay, John, I'm happy to give you the floor then, please.
Thank you. I tend to agree with Mohammed in that under the current conditions of the COVID epidemic, we have a roughly, what is it, 127 out of over 300 members that are signed up under these conditions. You know, I don't doubt that this has merit and should be discussed. And it has a number of good ideas, but to bring this up and actually start a pathway of a major change of how we operate currently, I think is just not a good idea. I think we should have robust conversation, even party debate. I'm not sure that under the current conditions we could have that. I agree that we shouldn't discount this, but we should just table it and move it to next year where we can all sit down and have really good discussions and really look at the issues and try to resolve those in whatever way we can. That's really all I have to say, other than typically under parliamentary procedures, and I don't know exactly how we work here in that regard, but typically if there's a motion and a second to table it, then usually you take that vote up, and if the majority of the people want it tabled, then there's even no need for discussion at this time. So that would just be my recommendation. I think there's going to be, unless everybody's on board with a major change like this, I just don't see how it would have wings. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. So I don't know, Stig-Erik, can I turn to you at that point, and maybe you can come back on some of those questions if possible, and then I can see we have other hands raised as well. But is that okay, Stig-Erik, for you to kind of come back in now, and then we can take some more questions after?
Yes, I think for some of the comments that were raised about the how to define gender balance and regional representation, all those things, I think those are among the questions that the working group would have to address. We didn't want to come with a finished product. We did not have the energy or resources to come with a finished product. That's why we wanted to start this conversation. So I think that's. And I see in the chat that people are pointing out the importance of gender balance and regional representation as well. So I think that's a concern that we have to have. I mean, it's to be fair, we've managed to have a decent gender balance, but I think that the problem is that we need to ensure that we don't select an all male or an all female board for the Vienna NGO Committee. I think that would be unfortunate. I also think it would be very unfortunate if we had an all European or all North American board, since we are a global umbrella organization. And it extends the mandate of the nominations committee to be more proactive in its work. That means maybe even go out and search among the membership for potential candidates if there are regions or perspectives that are underrepresented. But again, the work of the nomination committee is to provide a recommendation that the General Assembly will vote on. It's not like a done deal. Of course, it's a recommendation. It favors the candidates that the nomination committee recommends. But if the membership disagrees, if the membership is unhappy with the work of the nomination committee, they are free to reject the proposal. I also think that the terms of reference and the mandate given to the nomination committee will be important. We need to agree on those principles as a collective in order to give clear instructions to the nomination committee what they are, because otherwise we're just moving the political discussion from the floor of the AGM to the nomination committee. But I think from our perspective, we see this as a more of a collaborative model rather than the winner-takes-all model, which we are a little bit worried about. When it comes to John's comment about the time frame, I sympathize with that perspective, because I think that there's much to be said to sit down together and discuss openly rather than on Skype or Zoom. But I think the proposal that we've put on the table is to have the working group started now, and if the membership feels that that's too soon, then that's up to the membership, of course.
Okay, thank you, Sigurd. And I see there's also the chat kind of moved quite fast, but there's a really good comment here from Amy as well, saying that perhaps as part of this whole process, over the coming months, there could be a series of online discussions to allow as many members as possible to discuss this idea and to kind of input into the idea. So, I think you're proposing a working group, but that working group with probably the VNGOC support, obviously, and Sarah's support, I think it's a great idea to have a series of online meetings at different times, the day, so that lots of people can participate, in order to kind of make it as involved a process as possible, so that no one is left feeling that this has all happened without their input, which I think is really important. So thank you, Amy, for that. I think that's a really, really good idea, which we can take on board. And yeah, I mean, obviously, Stig-Erik, I echo your concerns in terms of the gender, what you're saying about the gender balance and other balances. I think, we just speaking as a board member who was involved in the revision of the statutes, the reason that we vote for one board position at a time is the whole purpose for doing that is so that you can see who has won the elections for previous positions before making a decision about who you're going to vote for in the next ones. And the idea behind that is that, for example, if you voted for 2 men, you could look at voting for a woman for the 3rd position. If you voted for 2 Europeans, you can look at voting for someone else. So that the whole system was designed to try and promote that balance as much as possible. But I think the concern is that there's nothing that kind of protects that in there. So yeah, but thanks again, Stig-Erik. So we've got hands up now from Shane and from Beza. So I'm happy to give the floor to Shane and then to Beza. Shane, can you are you able to speak? And apologies to Mohammed, for some reason we couldn't hear you, Mohammed, but if you do still want to make an intervention, please let us know. Beza, I see that you've unmuted, so please go first. And yeah. I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly, sorry.
Yeah, you pronounced it right. Okay. Thanks, I'm Beza Kartal from Verein Neubeginn, Austria. Right now, the gender equality and the regional representation are really totally important aspects to always care of. But the third condition, that is like the representation of the NGOs, I don't really get what are the criteria for that, first of all, because I think the representation of every NGO is really important in this organization. There aren't any real discussion how to choose the real representation. What do we look at it? Like, I think we really need a deep dive into these topics, maybe in future discussions, and really look into what we mean with that. Because right now it is really unclear for me, and I think for many other people too. And this might be a real problem in the future, because the whole proposal, like has mentioned, brings really a lot of changes in the workings of the whole organization. So I think we need more time to develop a broader set of aspects in order to cover more NGOs. So that's what I like to say.
Okay. Thank you, Beza. That's appreciated. And I think, as Stig Erik said, that would definitely be something that the working group would be charged with clarifying, because I think you're right. We need to all be very confident and sure about what we mean by these things. Shane, over to you, please.
Yes.
You have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me? You guys can hear
absolutely. Me? Thank you.
Yeah, just quickly. Sorry about that. Look, this may be redundant, but obviously composition of the actual working group, that's obviously to be decided upon, and obviously elections and or selection from the broader community for that purpose will be in play at some point.
Yeah. So, Stig Erik, did you want to say maybe a few words about this working group? Like, how would you envisage that? How do we form that? How do people put their name forward for that? What was your thinking on this?
Well, obviously, since I was one of the people behind the proposal, I would be prepared to join that working group. We would just have volunteers from the membership. I think that's the best way to go. And I think that I want to stress again, we don't want to sort of create the impression that this is a dramatic change and that it's sort of a coup or anything. We want to have the membership with us in this process, not rush the process. But we think it's a worthwhile idea to explore, and we would like to start that process now. And if it's too soon to have a decision by October, then that's fine too. I mean, the important thing for me is that we start this discussion to see if this is a viable proposal, and then that we end up and present this to the membership at some point where for their decision. We outlined the timeline because we thought it was useful to have an idea of the work and the progress. So that was the idea of the timeline. I'm not, we're not completely committed to that timeline, but that we wanted to outline that to show that this can be done.
Yeah, and I think the key point is hopefully to alleviate some people's anxieties. Like, as Stig Erik has emphasized, this is a proposal to have a conversation. This isn't a proposal to make a change. And I think, as you said, Stig Erik, if we get to October and there is no agreement, there is no consensus, there's clearly no appetite to change, then no change happens. And I think that still means it would still be a useful process to have the conversation. If it doesn't end up with a change being made, then that's absolutely fine. So this isn't. Yeah, sorry, Shane, was that you coming in?
Yeah, just jumping in. Obviously, the volunteer mechanism for participation in the committee. I mean, there may be a need for a recruitment exercise in that aspect as well, because obviously gender balance, regional balance may be part of it as well, and volunteers could be all from a certain area. So obviously that would be part of a selection process as well. But I think, if I could perhaps posit an idea that may already be thought of, but a rolling consultations, if this does get traction today, a rolling consultation through regions and through different sectors, even smaller pocket-sized ones as you're going along, so that there's a constant gleaning and a constant rotating through. So people are getting rather than just chunks here, chunks there, and then moving into places where you get, maybe a biased perspective on a particular issue. Can happen on any side of a particular issue. But if that's sort of part of the process as well, I could see merit in getting the ball rolling. But again, I think there's a real need for some clear terms of reference and recruitment exercise for that particular mechanism as well.
Okay, that's welcome. Thank you very much, Shane. Dave, please, over to you. I see your hand raised. I hope I'm not missing. If anyone has had their hand raised for ages and for some reason I'm not seeing it, please do let me know. But yeah, Dave, over to you, please. Dave, are you able to unmute? Or if not, Nasli, I can see you. Oh, go on, Dave. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest that perhaps for this venture, but exploring it for our proceedings as a committee generally, are there member groups who need some internet access subsidy? I've encountered that in my work with partners in some parts of the world. And assuming assuming everyone has access, I think the online aspect is likely to increase participation rather than to decrease it. So I just honestly don't see why a discussion should wait. It has to have the mutual understanding that we're not presupposing what the outcome of the discussion will be, that it'll necessarily lead to action in October, and we all have to be prepared for those possibilities in good faith. But these are important needs that we've talked about for years here, and I don't think a mere discussion of gender balance and geographical balance should wait.
Okay, thank you, Dave. That's appreciated. And Nasli, over to you. I see you've already unmuted.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. Hello, everyone. My name is Nasli Maksudi, and I'm with the Center on Drug Policy Evaluation in Toronto, Canada. Just listening to this conversation, I wanted to share a couple of reflections from my perspective. I think, firstly, I would hope that as a committee, given our working methods in other areas of our work, would agree that in order to not only have credibility, but also to have the strongest kind of representation, including gender balance, including regional diversity, including differences in priority areas across the issues that relate to drugs and drug policy. That is something that we reflect in everything we do. When we select speakers, those are the aims that we are balancing. And one of the key pieces of work that the VNGOC has been engaged in on a number of occasions is the CSTF, and they are the Civil Society Task Force, and they are as well very much guided by needing to balance these various aspects to ensure that those who are put forward are bringing a diversity of voices and a diversity that is sufficient for balance and does facilitate some sort of credibility in showing that this broad voices are being showcased. So knowing that that is something we do in our working methods in things like speaker selection, it would seem to me to be quite a natural extension that our own board should also be reflecting that type of diversity, that type of balance as much as possible. And as has been indicated by Jamie, efforts to have phased voting were ways to perhaps allow members to consider those variables as they could tweak votes based on who had already been elected for positions that had already been voted for. But perhaps something like this would be an even stronger means of achieving that. Now, I want to be clear, while I agree that the intention that has been conveyed is really important, and I think fundamentally in alignment with all of the work that the VNGOC does and is necessary to be working in these UN forums with some credibility, I don't think we are tied to anything that comes out of this discussion. My understanding is that this working group could begin to have these conversations, perhaps the addition from Amy of doing conversations with smaller groups across different time zones to get as much input as possible. And then that could be brought back to the membership. And if it seemed that there was an agreement or the way that it was proposed didn't seem feasible or effective, then that could be rejected at that point. I think beginning a conversation on something that is absolutely in alignment with how we do all of the rest of our work to bring that into our own, like kind of our own mandates and our own protocols and the own ways that we work just seems really aligned for me. And I would stress as well, even if it was accepted, even if we did come to re-meet and have the proposal from the working group and there was sufficient support for it, there is no actual change in terms of individuals being able to vote for who they want to vote for. The slate is merely a recommendation. It's a recommendation based on values that I believe we as a committee share. Yet if there are individuals that others would like to vote for but are not on the slate, they are more than welcome to do that. There is no restriction. So in terms of an actual meaningful change, all I see is that there is essentially an appendix, an addendum to the election process where the slate is put forward of these individuals could in some ways meet the various criteria that we as a committee believe are important and could be considered in light of that, but feel free to vote as you see fit, of course. So to me, it really does not seem like a big change. And the change itself seems like it's in alignment with all of our work, and beginning it now when arguably, I think with the online nature of these meetings, we actually do have more inclusion and greater individuals being able to give input than necessarily all the people that can always travel to Vienna. So, and I think that there would be opportunities for those that haven't participated in this online discussion to give input in the process itself. So that would be my position. I would fully support beginning this process in light that it's in alignment with the rest of our working methods, and there will be opportunities to reflect upon whether it's suitable in the future as well.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you, Nasli. So in the interest of time, and acknowledging that this proposal is not for a change to be made, but for a discussion to begin. What I'd like to give the floor to Dag, because I see you have your hand raised, and then I'll happily give the floor back to Stig Erik in case there's any final words he wants to say. And then in order to move forward with this proposal, it requires half of the members in good standing to support. So what I'm going to ask is that if there's anyone who wants to log their objection to this proposal, I would invite you to do so now, either through the Q&A or the chat or verbally after Dag and Stig Erik have spoken, because we want to, I think it's important to get a sense of how many of our members in good standing object and how many then abstain, and then we can make a sense of whether this does have the support to go forward or not. So so Dag, I'll hand over to you. I see you've unmuted, so please over to you, and then Stig Erik. But in the meantime, please, if even if you've spoken already and you still want to make a formal objection to this proposal, please log that now so we can count them up and see where we are. Given that we're on Zoom, that's the best I can do in lieu of a show of hands, which is how we would normally do this. So Dag, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamie, and thanks to all the constructive contributions that I've heard. Some of us will that we discussed this 2-3 years ago in the General Assembly when we sat in Vienna. What I learned from that was that this idea of having a committee proposing a slate is not familiar to many people around the world because we have different organizational structures. I thought that was obvious for the whole world that you had such proposals from a nomination committee, but discovered that in many parts of the world it's not tradition or practice. So as I see it, the simple thing here is to change the statutes. That's a technical thing. It can be drafted in maybe half an hour. But the more complicated thing is to develop a common understanding of how the board shall function, how the committee shall function, how we shall work together. That is not a matter of changing statutes. That's a matter of culture and understanding. And to develop that understanding, we need time, as I hear all the interventions here now, that we all have to think about this, consider it again, discuss, and then see what we can come out with in the end. So I have a lot of sympathy with those who have said that we have to take the time that we need to develop this understanding of what this is all about and how this shall be practiced. I don't want to propose a different timeline than what is in the proposal that we have submitted. But it could be that the Assembly could send a signal to the board that if there is more time needed, then there is a possibility to use that time and also to use the methods that they find useful to involve all the participants around the world. So I will not propose anything, but I think that could be a signal from the assembly. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dag. I appreciate that. So Stig Erik, I'd like, if you have any final remarks you'd like to add. So far, I see one abstention that's been registered. So I'm really encouraging you, if you do object to this proposal, please do register that now, because I don't want to be forcing something through that doesn't have the support of the majority of the members in good standing. So Stig Erik, over to you, please.
Yes, I think a lot of good points have been raised, and I again want to emphasize that I don't want to rush this and to leave members feeling that they've been sort of swept along with something they're not comfortable with. So I would be happy with the comments from Dag that if the board sees fit, then we can prolong the process. But I think it's still useful to start the discussion, and whether the timeline of October this year is too ambitious. That's I mean, now I'm speaking on my own behalf, but if that is too ambitious, then I think that the board can make a decision on that and prolong the process. And again, I want to emphasize that the decision about the changes will be made at a later stage. That will not be determined today. Today is the question of whether we should establish a working group. So it's less dramatic than the next decision that potentially will be made. Even though that isn't really all that dramatic either. I don't even think it requires a change of the statutes. I think it's just a matter of changing the bylaws or yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
And we've had a question from Regina. So the proposal, starting the discussion, including the meetings for members to participate. I think that was Amy's earlier suggestion, and I would definitely support that. So I think the extra suggestions that have come through this really good discussion have been the idea of holding a series of meetings across different time zones for people to engage in this process, and also providing internet access if people are unable to join because of infrastructure challenges. That's something that we can look to support as well. So, again, the watchword here is inclusive, trying to make sure that, as many of our 318 members as possible have the opportunity to be part of the discussion. And as Stig Erik says, if that discussion doesn't come to a conclusion by October, then so be it. Then it carries on. So I still, at this point, don't see any other objections or any other abstentions logged. And certainly not enough to represent more than half of the members in good standing. So I would like to propose that we go ahead with this proposal. Thank you again to Stig Erik for putting it on the table along with your colleagues. That's much appreciated. I think it's a good example of the members kind of playing this active role in how we run the VNGOC, which is very welcome. And yeah, I've seen in the chat there's been lots of early volunteering for the working group, which is welcome. Just to check, Sarah, we are capturing those, yeah? We capture the chats. Is that right?
Yes, the chat is also recorded alongside the meeting.
Okay, so if you have volunteered and you now regret it, that's tough luck. You are now in the working group. Congratulations. And to come back to Shane's point, I think then, depending on what volunteers we get for that working group, and I would really encourage as many of you as possible to be part of that, particularly if you've got an interest, an acute interest in this topic. And then we can look at who's on that working group. And if there's an entire region that's unrepresented, we can be a bit more proactive in looking for volunteers. I think that was one of Shane's kind of suggestions. Okay, so with that said, I'd like to move us on. Thank you again, everyone, for kind of abiding with us, but also taking part in that good discussion. I'd like to we'll move on to agenda item 10, which is our update from the UNODC Civil Society Unit. So Mirella, the floor is yours. Thank you so much. Mirella, I can see that you're still...
Yes, sorry. I was having some difficulty to move from one screen to another. I was listening, but not concentrating, but just to if you feel more comfortable, this is the issue of gender and geographical balance is very much on all the meeting that UNODC has with member states, you know, as their governing body. So you see, at the end, the NGOs have also the same issues. Okay, thank you for giving me anyhow the floor for an update, and the update was already somehow given by the presentation that was done before. We have had a very rich year in doing a webinar together with the Vienna NGO Committee, and I will not repeat on this. I just maybe one thing to mention, of course, you all have noticed a change in the calendar this year with the CND, and this was essentially due to the fact that the Crime Congress that was postponed from 2020 to 2021 happened to be on that week where usually the CND would take place. This was like the first virtual event for the UN outside of headquarters. A very complicated one, I must say, and then the same secretariat that is the secretariat of the CND had to struggle, you know, to make it happen and to make it as good as possible. One thing which is good for the NGOs were some lessons learned. You know, using this new technology for the Congress. Joe was very concerned that we may not have enough slots for everybody. So the slots at the beginning of the Congress provided to NGOs were very, you know, a very small percentage. I tried, you know, in my capacity to have a bigger number even before, you know, this first deadline, knowing that in any case we will have more. And at the end, a lot of slots were given last minute for NGOs. So it was a good experience. And this year for the CND, 20% of the slots were automatically given to NGOs. So I think you have definitely gained with this experience, and it's good to keep it in mind. It's going to be one of my advice that for future intergovernmental meeting, this percentage should be kept. What other thing? Of course, I mean, you've the Indigo. I'm sure that now we were a bit more comfortable, and I know from the NGOs that registered that it seems that is working smoothly. What for the CND, I think you will have to wait for tomorrow where we will brief you. But I just can say that that we look forward to continuing our work together with the VNGOC and the civil society unit is here in UNODC is here to help you and to answer any question that you may have. So thank you, everybody, and all my best wishes.
Thank you so much, Mirella. Much appreciated. And thanks for joining us today, as well as always. Okay, so we move on to agenda item 11, which is the election. So I will, at this point, give the floor to the representative of the election committee, who I think is it just Orsi still that we have from the election committee? Orsi, shall I give you the floor now and you can take us through? I'm still controlling the slides, so just let me know when. But then after this part, because obviously I'm standing for election, after this agenda item, I'm also going to hand over to the vice chair, Matej, who will then close the meeting on my behalf as well. So yeah, Orsi, over to you at this point, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we, yeah, thank you. So before I go into talking about the election, another shout out to Sarah is due because she has been guiding the election committee through this new kind of election. And as you can see, we have beautiful graphic designs now to help you understand the process. So the board elections are starting, well, they started yesterday, and I have had a question about extending the deadline. And so I consulted with Sarah, and we are able to extend the deadline until tonight, midnight, Central European time. It is close to 5 p.m. here, so that would allow an extra 7 hours, if my quick math is correct, for you to register. And the reason for that is because the election committee and mostly Sarah will need some time to cross-check everyone and send you the correct link and just make sure that everything happens smoothly before we go into the election itself. So the registration works as is written on the slide. Every organization is appointing one representative, and the way that you do that is you send an email to info@vngoc.org with the name and email of that representative. And then we will let you know if your registration has been approved, and then you will get a link as well through which you can securely vote. And then, you see all of the dates and deadlines for the key events. We also have them in the draft agenda, but basically we open the voting on Monday, 12th of April for the position of the chair. And then the voting period will be 24 hours following that. And so on Tuesday, the 13th of April, we will announce the results of the election for the position of the chair and open another period of voting for 24 hours where members can vote for the deputy treasurer. And so we will repeat this cycle again, which means that on the 14th of April on Wednesday, we will announce the winner of the deputy treasurer election, and then we'll open the voting for the deputy secretary. And then at 24 hours after that, we will gather for the second part of annual general meeting of the VNGOC. We will confirm the results and welcome the new board then. Well, 23 hours, not 24, okay. A little bit about the online voting. So we have chosen Election Runner as our platform to have like a secure and prove everyone's votes. And the way it's going to work is that you're going to get all of the instructions that you need for the voting in the email when we confirm your registration. You will get a key, which is pretty much a link that you will click through, and then you will see your options to vote. And then all you really have to do is just click on your selected nominee. And apparently Election Runner is also sending you an email with the results of the vote, but we will announce it officially here when we gather. I think we can move on to the next slide.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah. So today is the day when we can hear from the nominees themselves. So I'm going to hand it back to Jamie and mute myself. If there's any questions, I am online today until, let's say, 8 p.m. Central European time, so Vienna time. You can email us at info@vngoc.org and your question will find us. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I think I have a couple of minutes now just to, well, it's introduce myself, but I've already been speaking for nearly 2 hours. But yeah, my name's Jamie Bridge. I work for the International Drug Policy Consortium based in the UK, having started my career working in local drug services about 20 years ago. And I've been the VNGOC chair for the past 3 years, having been the treasurer before that on the board as well. I just want to say, like, in this couple of minutes, it's been a huge honor to be on this board. It's been an honor to work with all of you, particularly, you know, to have the opportunity to work with a lot of organizations and partners and people that I wouldn't normally, you know, work with that closely. So it's been really good. I've learned a huge amount from all of you as well. And I think we've achieved a lot. As Matej presented earlier, you know, we've managed to open up more spaces at the CND, including the dialogues with WHO, the hearings with INCB, the Finding Common Ground discussion, which I personally really enjoyed last year, and the countless speaking slots throughout the years. So, you know, I hope you agree that the committee's in a strong place in terms of our membership, our finances, our processes, and our work, which is a credit to all of you and a credit to the current and previous board members, and of course to Sarah as well. And yeah, so just to say that, you know, COVID has been a huge challenge, to say the least, for all of us. But I think from the committee's perspective, we've done everything we can to prepare for CND next week. But whatever happens, we'll be here to help in any way we can. I guess one of the biggest regrets, as I said earlier, is not seeing everyone physically this next week in Vienna. But I do look forward to connecting with everyone properly soon. I just want to say thanks to everyone for the support you've given over these past few years. And I hope I can continue as your chair for one last term as chair. So thank you. And now I think over to John, is that right? John, are you there?
Yes,
yeah,
thank you. Yeah, this year has been very challenging in terms of COVID, in terms of participation. Personally, I've been in prevention for over 20 years. Before that, I was in the entertainment business. But I started working in local prevention over 20 years ago, and then we've started working on recovery as well. I've been participating in the C&D Commission's sessions since beyond 2008. I was an original member of that. In 2014, my organization received its Economic and Social Council Special Consultative status at the United Nations. So we were pleased to move forward in that. And I've presented on numerous C&D side events over the years. I think pretty much almost every year, and also many oral interventions. And I've presented in numerous papers as well, and also given opportunity for other subject matter experts around the world to be able to present on issues regarding drugs and substance abuse as well. Since I went into semi-retirement in 2018, and that allowed me to spend even more time in terms of the C&D. So, and I was really asked to look at a particular issue a few years ago that was moving along, and that being the World Health Organization's issues on cannabis. And I became very involved in that regard. And I believe in the last 2 years, I've gone to not only the C&D sessions, but also every intersessional meeting since then. I may have missed one, but even under COVID, I believe the last one before the vote, I was the only NGO that even came to Vienna to speak personally on the issues. I think the result, I was pretty stunned at the issue that we were focused on, that we had an overwhelming amount of support. And it showed me what influence, positive influence NGOs could have on that world stage. And I'd like to continue that. Not only will I be continuing working on therapy, CADFI is opening up a recovery home, specifically in the area of equine therapy, but I also want to work in the area of prevention and really see prevention taking a greater voice on the world stage. So if I'm elected, I'll work tirelessly to find the issues that we can agree on and move our important work forward on the world stage. Just thank you I think it's an honor just to be considered. I want to thank you.
Thank you, John and Jamie. I would like to move on to the next round, the deputy treasurers, and I would like to remind all of the nominees to please keep your remarks to 2 minutes because we are very close to the official end of this meeting. Thank you. So Augusto, let's start with you if you're around. Do we have Augusto on?
Let me check, but maybe we can move on to Alexandra for now.
Yeah, let's do that.
Can I?
We can hear you.
Excuse me, can I start?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Oh, hold on. We are hearing from Arumugam Shankar at the moment, aren't we? I just want to make sure that everybody listening is clear about who we're listening to at the moment. So please state your name and organization before you start talking. Thank you.
Hi, this is Shankar. Can I start, please? Yes. Yes. Dear friends, greetings to you all. This is Shankar from Empower India, which is a civil society organization. Has been working with grassroots communities for the past 30 years and having special consultative status with the United Nations Economic Social Council, that is VNGOC, since 2019. Also, Empower India is accredited to UNEP and UNCCD. I am a social activist with legal background and a postgraduate in economics. Now I am contesting for Deputy Treasurer in VNGOC elections 2021. I request you all to consider for 2 factors to vote for me. Number 1, I am the only one candidate representing, say, a civil society organization called Empower India, which is having VNGOC status. Out of 5 candidates, those who are contesting for Deputy Treasurer. Point number 2, also I have 30 years of experience in the civil society sector. You kindly go through my profile, full profile in the candidates list. So I humbly appeal to you all to support me to select as a Deputy Treasurer to serve in the VNGOC board. Thanks and regards. Good night to all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So now I see that we have Augusto on the line, so I would hand it over to them. You have the floor, Augusto.
Thank you very much. I'm Augusto Nogueira. I'm president of the VNGO, International Federation of Non-Government Organizations. I'm a member of this federation for more than 10 years. But currently I'm the president of this NGO for around 6 years. But also I'm president of ARTM, Association of Rehabilitation of Drug Abusers of Macau, for around, and working as a CEO for around 26 years. I'm also member of the local government drug commission and AIDS commission, so for more than 10 years as well. And I was, due to the good work developed by ARTM and my team, we are awarded by the Portuguese government and also by the Macau government. And I believe I'm candidate because I believe Asia, it's time to have someone from Asia on the board. And due to my work, I've been around in Asia for many countries, and I could see what good has been done over here in Asia, but also all the challenge that we are facing over here, and all the drug policies and the vulnerabilities and the discriminations that happen in Asia. And I hope with in my position in VNGOC, I can alert and I can do something for the overall problem that Asia have. I am a strong support of the continued care which involves for me recovery, prevention, harm reduction, and treatment, and human rights that dignify the people that are recovered from drugs and also still using. So I think we only can do something if we support all the pillars. And that's it. And I hope with my large experience and also with my connection in Asia, through the UN and through all the other agencies, we can do something very positive, and we can bring the voice of Asia finally for the UN UNODC and for the Vienna NGOC. Thank you very much for considering my application, and good luck to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Augusto. And so now I am handing over to Alexander. You have the floor.
Thank you. I hope you are all well in these bad times. I'm from Brazil. I am a psychiatrist and I am president of Conectados pela Vida. And I am member of the Brazilian Alcohol and Drug Studies Association. I work as clinical psychiatrist and addiction specialist in South Brazil. And I work with addiction and prevention. I am very interested in bringing contribution to my locality, especially South America. And if I'm selected, it will be a great opportunity to improve my connections and to help with the other NGOs from the world. I work at university. I have a very good academical background, and I'm very interested in help in this issue. So I hope I can contribute. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now I see that George is here, so it's your time.
Okay, thank you, Orsi. I think I'm audible enough. So my name is George Ochieng. I'm the founder and director at Slamtel Foundation. And my background is a social work. I work with children in the informal settlement, and they happen also to be the most affected population when we talk about drugs, and not forgetting the youth and the women. So my input to the board is that I want to bring the voice of the most affected population into the board, so that their voices can be heard more audible, and including having a very youthful, active young person who can really champion for the unity, not only in Africa, but the entire globe, about the most affected population, and see how things will work out for their own good. Based on the work that I've done through VNGOC, I have been able to work. We've been able to do the African Common Position that really brought all the most of the African NGOs together, looking at prevention, treatment, and harm reduction. And my overall vision is that I don't want to see us operating in different circles. My overall aim is to ensure that we have everyone on board. The people who are doing prevention, treatment, and harm reduction, we unite and work for the good of the people that we are serving. And that is why I want to bring the voices of the young people into this board. Yeah, I think that is the most important thing that I want to put across, and I'm humbly requesting for your support. I know I've served in the nomination committee for some time, and it is now time to also give other people, or see we've served with you in the nomination committee, we give other people an opportunity to serve over there, so that we can also serve in different angles. And mine is not only Africa, but I'm looking at the global unity that can be put together to ensure that we work for the better and the good of the people who are affected by drugs globally. Thank you very much, and that is my take.
Thank you so much. And now I can see Heloisa is also here, so it's your turn. You are muted, Heloisa. Yes, good now.
Thank you, and hello everyone. I'm Heloísa Brojato Mata. I'm also from Brazil, and I represent the International Association for Hospice and Palliative Care. So I work with the dimension of access to medicines. And I would like to say a little bit, to tell a little bit about myself and how I started in this world of medicines. Well, actually, I grew up in a house full of medicines. My father was a doctor, physician in Brazil, and I learned mostly at home. And I learned these perspectives of the patients and professionals that were working to improve access to medicines. And then later I became a journalist and developed a better understanding on the functioning of the health system, and also in relation with the justice system. And then I learned a lot collecting information for my stories, and that's how I followed UNGAS in 2016. So with my increased interest in this field, then and the drug problem and the lack of access to medical opioids, I devoted myself to a PhD about access to medicines and the international drug control system at Swansea University, which I hope to finish soon. My work is under a health and human rights-based approach. And then I also worked at UNODC on research about on access on controlled medicines in different countries. And I learned also a bit from the perspective of the agency. And I believe it's important to have all these different perspectives to contribute to the work of the board. And I also worked on the civil society task force from the Vienna NGO Committee in 2018-19. And I finally believe that it's important to have a Latin American woman representing the voices of patients and practitioners that struggle with the lack of access to controlled medicines in many countries. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I apologize to anyone whose name I butchered. So as we're moving on to the Deputy Secretary role, I want to be mindful of the fact that we are a bit over, but we still have around 100 participants online. So I think it's worth going into the third part as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Penny, who is already here and ready.
Okay, thank you so much, Orsi. My name's Penny Hill. I'm joining you today from Gadigal Land in Sydney, Australia. I'd just like to pay my respects to any Indigenous elders, past, present, or emerging that might be joining us today. I come from a background in community health, harm reduction, advocacy, and research sectors in Australia. I'm also a PhD candidate, hoping to submit my PhD right after CND, as CND keeps me quite busy for the week. Where my PhD has been in looking at the impact of health service utilisation on opioid overdose incidents in Australia and in Canada. And my current research involves establishing a national early warning network to engage government, health, law enforcement and NGOs in communicating on and responding to issues related to emerging drugs or novel psychoactive substances in Australia. I've been the current Deputy Secretary of the VNGOC since 2019 and have organised the Asia Pacific Ad Hoc Working Group for the VNGOC since 2020. It's, as Jamie's already mentioned, it's been an absolute honour to work in these roles and with the broad membership of the board and the working group and the whole VNGOC membership to find common ground and support the work of the membership. I strive to meet my terms, the terms of my role as Deputy Secretary, and greatly appreciate my colleagues on the board for facilitating my time zone in organising meetings so that I've been able to attend all of the board meetings this year. I'd also just like to mention that I've been the only current board member this year that is situated outside of or vastly away from the Central European time zone. And I've consistently advocated for webinars to be held across multiple time zones to ensure access all over the world to these online events that we've been holding this year for COVID. I'd strongly like to continue in my role as Deputy Secretary on the board and continue working to ensure meaningful participation of civil society in C&D sessions and continue working towards the establishment of and continuing consultations for the Asia Pacific Common Position and expanding the membership of the VNGOC to my neighbours in the Pacific Island nations. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Penny. And I cannot see Asia or Dr. Kawal on the panelist list, but let's give him a few minutes, maybe they're around. Sarah, do you have eyes on them?
I think Asia mentioned that she has a conflicting meeting at the same time, and she wasn't sure if she could jump over because she had to do presentations there as well.
Fair enough.
I'll try to look for Dr. Kawal.
Give a second.
Yeah, I can't see Eva in the attendees list. I've just had a quick look.
Okay, well, if they do show up before we end the meeting, we can hand it over to them. But I think this concludes the part of the election committee. And Jamie, I am giving the mic back to you.
Back to Matej.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Orsi. Over to you, Matej.
Yeah, I will take it from here. Because we are a little bit over time for the meeting, I will close this meeting shortly. And I have to inform you that this meeting was only first part of AGM. So the second part will take place next week, 15th of April at 4:30 p.m. Central European Time, Vienna time. And we will be using Zoom platform as well. So you received, those who are registered, you received a link. Is there any other business? No, and also I would like to inform you for the for tomorrow. Tomorrow is NGO briefing. So those who are able to join for the NGO briefing, please be with us at 2 p.m. Vienna time on Zoom. You also received a link from Sarah, or you can find it on the Vienna NGO Committee website. And informal dialogues, we will also organize informal dialogues next week with C&D Chair, UNODC Executive Director, INCB President, and also WHO. So you can see all the dates and times on the slide. And you can also find this information on the Vienna NGO Committee website. And also the date for the informal dialogue with WHO will be confirmed a little bit later on, because we are still negotiating and discussing about this informal dialogue meeting. So is there anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah, so I'm honored to close this session. And see you probably tomorrow for the NGO briefings. and definitely next week for doing our, not just during the part 2 AGM, but also during our side events. And also there are a lot of other side events and other events next week online. So I hope you will enjoy this year's CND, unfortunately online, not in person. So see you tomorrow or next week. Goodbye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.